guys, so today I have swatches of the Lisbon collection from OPI for spring/summer 2018. There are 12 polishes here altogether. The 12 from the actual collection came from polishpick.com, so I will link that website down below. And then I also have the 3 Ulta exclusives that are obviously exclusive to Ulta and have to be purchased at ulta.com or in person. So I have 15 polishes here altogether, and I will get into the swatches. So the first polish is called Suzi Chase's Portu-geese, which is just hilarious to me. And this is a slightly off-white. It's almost like a little bit pinky, maybe. Next to me right now I have this Zoya Snow White, which is a white, so you can kind of see the shade difference there. It's really hard to tell unless it's against another color that it's not completely white. So this one is a bit sheer, a bit streaky on that first coat because it is a light white-ish color. You can see it does seem to level itself out pretty well though, not completely, but it does a little bit of work for you. And a pretty good formula on this one as well. So this one does start to cover a bit more on the second coat. It is going to need 3 for me though. I just have a few dark spots that I'm not thrilled with that need a little bit more polish over them. But I think depending on your application, you might be able to get away with this one in 2. I'm definitely not the most accurate and even polish applier ever. So those few uneven and dark spots that I did have on the second coat became a little bit more apparent after it dried completely. So I'm a little more confident in my need for a third coat now. And this does dry very shiny. So that is 3 coats of Suzi Chase's Portu-geese. The next polish is called Lisbon Wants More OPI, and this is a very light, slightly pinkish, sandy nude color. So this one actually covers pretty well on that first coat. It's not quite as streaky as the last one was. The formula almost feels a little bit thinner than the last one. Not too thin at all, just it does feel different. So it kind of surprises me that it feels thinner but seems to look more opaque on the first coat. So this one actually covers pretty well on 2 coats. If I remember correctly, I did need 3 for my picture, so I'm going to see how this one looks once I get the rest of the nails done, because it looks like it might cover for me in 2 this time. This does dry very shiny, and I've said this before, I tend to always throw, no more than 3, but I tend to always throw an extra coat onto my swatch pictures, just because sometimes the camera shows things that you would never see in person. Yeah, I'm going to call this one good in 2 here. I really don't have any dark spots or streaks or anything. So that is 2 coats of Lisbon Wants More OPI. The next polish is called Tagus in that Selfie, and this is a slightly corally pink. So this one also covers pretty well on that first coat, a bit sheer, a bit streaky still. You can see that those streaks, for the most part, level themselves out pretty quickly too. Good formula on this one as well. This one feels like the last one, a little bit thinner than the very first polish, but not too thin. So this is another one that's going to be really close to a 2 or 3 coater for me. I think it's going to be different than it was for my pictures. I need to start taking notes. I do believe I did 3 coats for my pictures, but I think I'm only going to need 2 for the video. But that is all going to depend on application and thickness of coats and whatnot. So that is 2 coats of Tagus in that Selfie. The next polish is called Got Nata On Me, and this is a little bit more of a salmon-y pink color. It leans a little bit orange. Here it is next to Tagus in that Selfie, so you can see the difference, because I know unless they're together they're going to look pretty similar. So this one also covers pretty well on the first coat, obviously not a 1-coater, but all of these so far level themselves out really nicely. I think the first polish, I can't even think of the name of it now, that slightly off-white leveled itself out the worst out of all of them, and even that one wasn't bad. Good formula on this one as well. And this one does cover completely in 2 coats. This is another one that I think could be 2 or 3 depending on your application, but you're more likely only going to need 2. And this one also dries very shiny. So that is 2 coats of Got Nata On Me. The next polish is called Sun, Sea, and Sand in My Pants, and this is a very bright sunshine yellow. So this one is definitely sheer and a bit streaky on that first coat, but it's not terrible, and I only say that because it's yellow. It's very hard for me to find a formula in a yellow that I like, or that I don't have a really hard time getting to perform well, and this one is not bad. I would say that this one is excellent for a yellow, but I just swatched the China Glaze Spring Collection a couple days ago, and that's got a yellow in it that we're going to have to talk about when we get there. But this one's still not bad. So there are still a few dark spots on this one for me anyway, after 2 coats. And I do feel like it tends to dry a little bit more sheer than it applies. But I also think that if you are a little bit better at painting your nails than me, very careful and not too picky, you could probably walk out the door with this in 2. I'm not sure how well those dark spots will show up on camera, but they were just a little bit too bad for me to call it good in 2. And I do feel like this color dries just a little bit darker than it appears in the bottle. So that is 3 coats of sun, sea, and sand in my pants. The next polish is called Closer Than You Might Belem, and this is a turquoise color. So this one is a little bit streaky on that first coat, but overall is pretty dang opaque. And those streaks do level themselves out a little bit, not completely. And good formula on this one as well. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. It was pretty opaque on one, just had a few streaks left. This is another one that I do feel like dries just a little bit darker than it applies. It's not really noticeable, but when you have a dry and a wet nail next to each other, it is. So that is 2 coats of Closer Than You Might Belem. The next polish is called Made It to 7th Hill, and this is kind of a coppery, I guess you could technically call it like rose gold. It's kind of a coppery metallic, but it has a little bit of a pink flash to it. So this one is very metallic, so you do need to be careful with those brush strokes. You want them to be as straight as possible. It's also a little bit sheer. Good formula on this one though. So you can see that the brush strokes don't go away completely. I have a little bit of a goofy one there that stuck around. They do fade a little bit, but if you have a really deep one or a really wild one, it's probably going to stick around. And this one does cover completely in 2 coats, and I feel like it does almost brighten the color a little bit. And this also dries pretty shiny. It is hard to pick out that pink shift on the nails. It's kind of there. I feel like it just kind of adds a little bit of a pink tone to the polish once it's on the nails, where in the bottle it looks like an actual shift. So that is 2 coats of Made It to 7th Hill. The next polish is called Now Museum, Now You Don't, and this is a red metallic. I do feel like this one has just a little bit of a gold shift to it. It's a bit sheer on the first coat, but it's also a little bit more sparkly than the last one, so the brush strokes aren't nearly as obvious in this one as the last polish. And good formula on this one as well. So the very slight brush strokes that were in this when it was wet are almost completely gone now that it's dry. And this has a really cool, very shimmery, almost like a little bit sparkly looking finish to it. I looked at it, was like staring at it up close, so I was waiting for the coat to dry, and it looks really cool. Like a lot cooler than I remember from my picture. So that is 2 coats of Now Museum, Now You Don't. The next polish is called We See Food, We Eat It, and this is I guess it depends on how you want to say it. It's like a pinky red or a reddy pink. It's just right down the line between those 2 colors. Looking at this, I think I would call it a little bit more of a pink than a red, but it is close. It covers pretty evenly, but it is a little bit sheer. I can still see my nail line. And a good formula on this one. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. This is another one that I think dries a little bit darker than it is in the bottle. But this also dries very shiny, and I'm just kind of impressed with how evenly it applies. So that is 2 coats of We See Food and Eat It. The next polish is called No Turning Back from Pink Street, and this is a hot pink cream. So this one also covers pretty evenly. It's a little bit more streaky than the last one, but those kind of level themselves out. I do have a little bit of nail line showing, but it's not terrible. I think if you're not picky, you could probably walk out the door with this one in 1 coat. Good formula on this one as well. So this one does cover completely on that second coat. I also feel like this one dries a little bit darker, but not significantly. The last one I feel like was significantly darker. And this does dry very shiny, which is my filler phrase when I can't cut the swatch short yet. So that is 2 coats of No Turning Back from Pink Street. The next polish is called a Red-vival City, and this is a very orangey red. And this one also covers pretty evenly. There's a couple of streaks, but they do level themselves out pretty well. I feel like this looked more red in the bottle and more orange on my nails. Really good formula on this one as well. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. I wouldn't have considered this like borderline neon in the bottle, but it really looks bright on my nails. And this one also dries very shiny. So that is 2 coats of a Red-vival City. The next polish is called Tile Art to Warm Your Heart, and this is a very saturated blue. And before I move on any further, not really. So this one covers it very well on that first coat, just a little bit sheer. I think this is one that if you use this a lot and it thickens up a little bit, it will be a 1-coater later on in its life. Really good formula on this one as well. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. It was pretty opaque on one. There were just a few, there were just a few little sheer spots. And this one also dries very shiny. I didn't have any staining with this one, but I also have only had it on, even for the swatch picture, only had it on for a few minutes. Took the picture, took it off. I didn't have any staining. My nails don't stain very easily though, so with shades like this, base coat, maybe a couple coats of base coat, just to be safe. So that is 2 coats of Tile Art to Warm Your Heart. These next 3 polishes are the Ulta exclusives to the Lisbon collection, so these can only be found on Ulta.com or in Ulta stores. These are the reason this video was not up 2 weeks ago, because I had to wait for these to arrive. This first one is called Climb Every Castle, and this is a light nude color. Let me stick it next to Lisbon Once More OPI, so you can see that this Lisbon Once More OPI over here, I referred to as a sandy nude, but next to this one, this actually looks way more sandy and this looks more on the pink side, but neither one of them really looks right in the viewfinder anyway. They are close. They're not exactly the same. It's kind of going to depend on which tone you prefer. So this one is a bit sheer, a bit streaky on that first coat, but really not terrible. I didn't really have high hopes for these since I hated the Ulta exclusives for, what was the spring collection last year? I can't even remember. I just find that Ulta exclusives tend to have quality issues for me, but these ones really aren't bad. So this one does start to build up on the second coat. Me, personally, I needed 3. Needed 3 for my pictures anyway, so I'm fully anticipating and needing 3 here. I did still have a few dark spots that I wanted to cover. And I was kind of talking about the Ulta exclusives as a whole in the last swatch, but this one does have a really good formula. So this one does cover completely in 3 coats. Looking at the second coat, it really wasn't terrible. I'm a little picky, so I definitely needed 3. I think if you're not picky, you could probably get away with 2 with this one. But I also feel like those few dark spots got a little bit darker as it dried. So that is 3 coats of Climb Every Castle. So the next polish is called Can I Bairro the Shade, and I'm probably butchering that, but I looked it up on like 3 different websites, and everyone said it really, really fast. So I'm just going to go with something similar to Bairro, because that's what OPI means. So this is a bit sheer, a bit streaky on the first coat. Out of all of the polishes in this collection, this is probably the worst performing one. And even then, it's not like the worst polish I've ever used. But I do feel like this shade could have been done with a little less sheer of a formula. So this one does build up a bit on 2 coats, but for me, I still need 1 more. Actually, I don't know, maybe not. I did for my pictures. I was pretty confident I was going to need 2 here. Oh, and I dissed the formula on the first coat too, but no, it looks pretty good. You know, this is turning out pretty good for me on the second coat. I feel like I definitely needed 3 when I did the swatch pictures. But this is surprising me a little bit, so maybe disregard the shade that I threw out on the first coat. The first coat didn't look like it was going to be very good. Second coat actually looks completely opaque. So my picture is 3, but this is really good in 2. So that is 2 coats of Can I Bairro This Shade. And the last polish is called And the Raven Cried, Give Me More. And this is a slightly reddy purple, almost jelly looking base, with a ton of purple shimmer and then these little scattered pink flecks. So since this one is in more of a jelly base, it is a bit sheer on that first coat, but it does apply pretty evenly. And really good formula on this one. This is not like a typical, not what I would consider a spring shade at all. Kind of surprised to see it in here, even if it is an Ulta exclusive and not part of the actual collection. But I actually really like this color. And I'm not a huge purple fan either. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats, and that second coat does deepen the color quite a bit, which also helps that shimmer stand out really nicely. This does dry a bit dull, so you will definitely want top coat. So that is 2 coats of And the Raven Cried, Give Me More. So my favorite in this collection is actually from the Ulta exclusives, and I'm not sure if that counts. So I'm going to pick Closer Than You Might, how did I even pronounce this in the video? Closer Than You Might, Belem, I think, for my favorite out of the actual Lisbon collection, just because of the color. The formula wasn't terrible, and I like this kind of turquoisey blue. But And the Raven Cried, Give Me More is actually my favorite out of the whole 15, because it was, and I'm not a big purple fan either, it was really glowy and really pretty, dark for a spring collection, but I feel like I'm not like quite into spring yet. So even though I really like the pastels and I'm kind of craving the pastels, I still want something to kind of set me back into where we are in the seasons. So I really like this one. If you can get your hands on this, I would suggest grabbing it. So that is the Lisbon collection from OPI for spring/summer 2018. Again, I will link Polish Pick down below because they did send me this collection. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will talk to you later. Bye.